Big fella. Unfortunately, I got to talk about one Atlanta Falcons. What the hell happened to your Atlanta Falcons last week against the Carolina Panthers? This is now the first time since 2013 that the Carolina Panthers have swept the Atlanta Falcons. Um, Bryce Young, statistically, the game of his life, put up an incredible, amazing, remarkable performance. In the first time in his career, he threw for over 400 yards, champ. 448 and 3 touchdowns in that game in that 30-27 victory. Now look, Michael Penix Jr., unfortunately, and even though BRF had no problem drafting Michael Penix Jr., you wanted Dallas Turner coming out of that draft.
Mhm.
He's now gonna have surgery on the ACL. What is that now, champ? 3 ACL injuries. And the concern with Michael Penix Jr. has never been his talent. I think he's shown and proven that he's a quality quarterback in this league, but durability has been a major issue with him coming out of college. Drake London, who has established himself as one of the top 10, if not top 5 receivers in football. Unfortunately, he'll be out as well. And it's sad for the Atlanta Falcons because with the embarrassment of riches that they have on the offense and on the defensive side of the football, you would expect a hell of a lot better. And losing to the Carolina Panthers, in which Bryce Young torched them, and let's shout out and let's give love words due to Bryce Young.
Mhm.
Granted, he still has an awful lot to prove, but at the same time, he has gotten better. So let's give credit to the Carolina Panthers. What you saw was a glimpse of the potential with Bryce Young, with McMillan. That's why they brought him there. And by the way, he leads all rookies as far as receiving yards and receptions. And we talked about how great Emeka Ibuka is, and he still is, man. But we can't ignore McMillan. Um, Your defense, the only sign the defense did well, champ, was stopping the run because that's been the problem with Atlanta's defensively. But 448 yards. And matter of fact, y'all had the number one passing defense in the National Football League.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's gonna have to be some changes. And look, man, I don't care if Atlanta wins as many games this season or even makes the playoffs. And it looks like y'all probably not going to make the playoffs.
Dope.
You have to clean up house. And you're going to have to look for another quarterback. Who knows? You may look for Mac Jones because Mac Jones has done his part in San Francisco. All this talk about Mac Jones being a bust, no, 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 no. I told you before, champ, and this is why I said I don't trust Bill Belichick at this point in this stage in his career. I do not trust Bill Belichick because bringing in Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, if that is not an indictment on Bill Belichick, I don't know what is. Mac Jones, what he showed you throughout his time in San Francisco before Brock Purdy, he showed you what potential he has as a quarterback. Is he the most flashy or spectacular quarterback? No, he's a
No.
competent quarterback. And I've said it, had they drafted him with the third overall pick as opposed to Trey Lance, they would have had a better opportunity as far as making the playoffs. And who knows, making to a Super Bowl. After all, you did it with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. Why not with Mac Jones? But and that's Atlanta. I think Atlanta should look at a quarterback in Mac Jones. But big fella, major disappointment for the ATL. I mean, the embarrassment of riches that y'all have, your defense got embarrassed. The defense against the Carolina Panthers cannot be absolved. They
Nope.
just cannot. And look, BRF, even though he made the argument for Michael Penix Jr., he didn't have a problem with it. But again, you mentioned it yourself, champ. If you bring in Kirk Cousins, knowing that he's had an Achilles injury, Michael Penix Jr. with all them injuries coming out of college, that's going to be a major concern. That is going to be a major red flag. I do agree with Shannon Sharp from the standpoint. I hope for the Atlanta Falcons that Michael Penix Jr. ends up having the career like one Thomas Davis. Remember Thomas Davis of your Georgia Bulldogs who played for the Carolina Panthers, who had an excellent NFL career? That's what I hope
Mhm.
Michael Penix Jr. And that was a great point by Shannon Sharp, mind you. But Champ, man, y'all gonna have to clean up house. The head coach, the offensive coordinator. I don't know. You still want to keep Jeff Aldrich? Fair
Yeah,
enough. You've
keep
done his
keep Jeff
part.
Ulbrich.
This, but overall, big fella, the floor is yours. I have nothing else to say. What the hell going on in the ATL?
Oh, look, the coach summed it up great. There's not a such thing as a losing team, only losing leadership. So he knows the end is near. He knows the end is near. So he basically just told us what the problem was. The problem is me. And I admire Coach Morris for taking accountability for this debacle that we've been having this season. But the problem is him. The problem is, like I stated, we haven't had the correct coaching with these personnel moves that we have made. We've made personnel moves in order to make the playoffs. But that's nothing new for Atlanta. We've drafted a hell of a lot of great players. We've drafted Patrick Kearney. We've drafted Jamal Anderson. We've drafted Keith Brookins. We've drafted Jesse Tuggle. We went out there. We had some great linemen: Chris Hinton, Jake Matthews, McCary. We've drafted those players. Tevin Coleman, Devontae
Walker,
Freeman.
Pierce, yeah,
I mean,
y'all done
we
your
have
part as far
drafted
as
throughout
accumulating
the
draft
history of
picks.
this league,
Yeah.
not throughout the history of our existence, not just, hell, people don't even realize this. Hell, we drafted Brett Favre. So
I'm
we,
like, remember what they used to call him?
yeah, Bakehead Brett. But it's just the coaching, man. And we got to be real with ourselves. It's just the coaching. Got a clean house. How many times can the house be clean uh before you find some spectacles on the floor? I mean, we keep sweeping up the house, but the same dirt keeps coming back in the front door. So what changes do we have to make in upper management at this point in order to make sure that a lot of these things doesn't happen again? I know a lot of people are saying. I know last week I was talking about Tom Flores. Oh, excuse me,
Brian Flores.
Brian Flores. Excuse me, and looking at Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator. But I want to bring it back to the state just a little bit. Bring it back to the state of Georgia a little bit. Atlanta, you want an offensive minded coach? Go look at former Georgia Bulldog Todd Monken from the Baltimore Ravens. You want to develop Michael Penix Jr., go get Todd Monken. His personality is not going to be out there. He's a no nonsense guy, and he helped Lamar Jackson even with him being the MVP before he got there. He helped him to get even better. If you want to bring back the fireworks of that 2016 team back to Atlanta, go get Todd Monken. Bring him in as the head coach. And it's a perfect marriage. He has ties from Georgia. He's proven that he can coach in this league. And he can draw up a hell of a playbook. You saw it, you see it in Baltimore. You saw it in Baltimore. And you have a young quarterback that's very, very impressionable, very, very coached, very, very coachable, excuse me. And you have the offensive personnel in order to produce. Look at Todd Monken. Keep Jeff Ulbrich. Still keep your eyes down there on Miami, but and see what's going on with Mike McDaniel. But if you really want to make a big splash, bring in Todd Monken. Bring him back to the state of Georgia and see what happens with this team. I'll say keep Jeff Ulbrich because he's been doing a hell of a job. The defense have been keeping us in a lot of games where the offense have been pretty much stagnant. But I would say look at Todd Monken, man. Todd Monken, that will be a good splash in order to make, man. I think he'll make a hell of a head coach as far as an offensive minded head coach in order to go with a lot of these weapons that we have on the offensive side of the ball. And just because we don't have a first round pick next year, I think people put too much emphasis on first round picks. Guess what? You find a lot of hidden gems in the second, the third, and the fourth round. You find a lot of hidden gems there. So don't discount that. This team has drafted pretty well over the course of the last couple of years. And we've done well in the latter rounds. A lot of our defense of key players came from the latter rounds outside of Pierce, you know. So we have to, that's what I recommend. Look at Todd Monken as well if you're trying to bring in an offensive coach this time around and get it right. Get it right. You fans have lost faith. As much as I am a hardcore Atlanta fan, it's Atlanta, man. It's Atlanta. It's Atlanta. It's Atlanta. If it's not the Braves, I don't even watch baseball. If it's not the Falcons, I watch the Falcons every single day, ever since I was a child, watching them with my uncle and my pops. So the fans have lost faith. You got to make a splash. Now, whether you go get Matt Jones or not, it's up to you because I think that you need to have an insurance policy in place just in case Michael Penix Jr. isn't back. Now, one insurance policy, if you're not willing to go out there and get Mac Jones, you may want to go down there and look at Davis Mills. He's played an amazing couple of games down there in Houston. Maybe he could be a backup just in case Michael Penix Jr. is not ready.
I don't think
So,
Houston wants to let him go, given with C.J. Stroud.
yeah, I don't think they'll let him go either, but neither do the 49ers. But you got that contract coming up with these, you got these rookie contracts upcoming.
I know,
So,
but here's the thing, champ. C.J. Stroud with the injury, Davis Mills, and again, we all know C.J. Stroud is not the issue for the Houston Texans. He's their type of quarterback. Besides, Houston would be absolutely foolish to let him go, given
mhm,
what he's accomplished the first 2 seasons, even though his play hasn't been what it was his rookie season. But at the same time, champ, you've said it before, quarterback can't throw behind his back.
nope.
And on top of that, when I look at other QBs, as you've mentioned, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, they haven't done much. So if we're gonna give them grace, why can't we give CJ grace? Given that he's done more in their career and he's much better than those quarterbacks. But I think, champ, it comes down to coaching. BRF and you have constantly lamented about Zach Robinson and his play calling. And look, in that game against Carolina, y'all had like a 14-point lead. Michael Penix Jr. was throwing the ball well. Bijan Robinson was some front runs. Tyler Algier. But then in the second half, y'all managed to source 6 points. And Bryce Young looked like Steve Young in that game. And they couldn't stop McMillan, Xavier the Leggett,
Leggett, yeah.
Leggett, I'm sorry. They just let Bryce Young have so much time in that pocket and use his legs when he needed to in order to make the type of throws. And that's shocking to me with Atlanta considering their defense. I mean, look, and I thought this was going to be a statement game from Atlanta because you're coming off a tough loss, overtime loss to the Indianapolis Colts. No shame. Even though, I mean, Jonathan Taylor rushed for over 200 yards, but Taylor is on pace to having an historic season and well deserving of the conversation for the league MVP.
Hmm.
And Atlanta has had issues as far as stopping the run. But then now, champ, against the Panthers, who last time in week 3, if I'm not mistaken, 30 to nothing. This.
Yeah.
And uh, it's only going to get worse. I mean, who's the right type of head coach? I mean, I would like to see Brian Flores with this
I,
team, with leadership. I mean, they need a type of leader. Like you see D'Amico Ryans, and he's done a really good job with the Houston Texans. That's the type of leader that you need. You need some type of leader that's going to get the team around and maximize their potential. Yes, I understand that they could look at an offensive type of guy so that way they can focus on the offense. Meanwhile, we can rely on Jeff Aldrich to handle the bigger responsibility, which is his defense. And to his credit, he's done a solid job. If you look at Atlanta, they can be better on team defense right now. I'm looking at Pro Football Reference. They're 16th in the NFL in team defense. In passing defense, they had the number one defense in the NFL. They're now third. Only the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills have a better passing defense than the Atlanta Falcons. Rush defense, however, y'all 27th in the NFL. And as far as scoring defense in the NFL, y'all are 19th in the NFL. And as far as points per game, y'all don't give up that many points per game. Y'all are 14th in for the most points per game at 23.9.
And
So,
second in sacks.
yes, and second in sacks, but despite all of that, y'all still losing.
Yeah.
And how is it gonna get any better now with Kirk Cousins at 37 years old with the
Big
Achilles and with no mobility whatsoever? And you know Kirk Cousins coming out once y'all signed him, he was coming off the Achilles. He wasn't known for having the best mobility in the world. So he is gonna be at best a stationary target.
hey, the silver lining in this is that once Kirk Cousins is released next year, he's going to free up 70 million in cap space.
Right.
That's the silver lining in this big event right now because man, it's been a rough season. This has been the most disappointing season ever. I do say ever, and I know people are going to say, well, ever is a strong word. We had the talent this year. There's been plenty of years where I understood we didn't have the talent. In 2007, I understood we didn't have the talent. The latter years of the Matt Ryan era, I understood we didn't have the talent. But now we have the talent, and it's just the lack of coaching. Just the lack of coaching. And a lot of the blame has to go to the front office as well, because Raheem Morris, he didn't do well last time that he was here. He didn't do well last time when he was the interim coach. When he was down there in Tampa, he didn't do very, very well. He had one winning season down there in Tampa. So it wasn't like he was this supreme head coach that had a lot of cachet or had a lot of wins, but that was that. It's very, very disappointing. And to add insult to injury, to twist the knife just a little bit more, the Rams get our first round pick next year. They have an opportunity to get even better. So, on top of them being, I think they're number one in that division right now in the NFC West.
Yes.
But yeah, on top of that, and possibly even winning a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford,
And
they
who
may
might
very
win the
well.
MVP.
Yeah. So on top of all of that, you may very well be getting a top 10 or a top 5 pick, which would be devastating, man. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're the Cleveland Browns of the NFL. We're the Cleveland Browns of the South. The Cleveland Browns of the South. We've had a lot of talent over the years and wasted the talent. Had a lot.
I think y'all the southeast version of the Dallas Cowboys now. Not the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s when y'all were winning Super Bowls, the glory days. I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys now, champ. Because the Dallas Cowboys, they've known for accumulating talent. And y'all have had exceptional talent. And where's that gotten you? Not even playoffs so far.
Mm-mm. So far, it hasn't gotten us anywhere. It's a lot that has to change with that Atlanta organization, man. I mean, and look, this is BRF's theory, and I'm starting to get a hold of it now. I think he said this on the Undisputed Goat pod. Shout out to BRF. This
Shout out.
quarterback debacle that we've been facing the past couple of years, man. I don't think we're gonna get it right until after we do right by Matt Ryan. Time to get him in the ring of honor right now and just do right by him. Because us fans, the true fans, we love Matt Ryan. But I think a lot of the fans, to BRF's points, and like I stated, I'm going to emphasize the fact that this was BRF's point and not my own, but I completely get what he was saying. We did not appreciate Matt Ryan when he was here. That was the largest
And you
window.
also mentioned that, champ, on my pod, because remember, we did the babyface heel. And
Yeah,
all of us, it was unanimous, Matt Ryan babyface because of
yes,
what he
indeed.
meant to Atlanta post Michael Vick.
That was the large look. Let's just be real, man. That was the largest period of consistency that we ever had as an organization. The largest. We didn't have that stability with Steve Barkowski. We didn't have that stability with Chris Chandler, and he took us to a Super Bowl. We didn't have it with Michael Vick. We did not have consecutive winning seasons until Matt Ryan arrived, and he produced 4 in a row. Took us to an NFC championship, took us to a Super Bowl MVP. He did everything that we could have asked for and was part of the community as well. You
Filler,
could go
yeah.
around there, you could see him deep in his philanthropy bag and all of that. But to BRF's point, man, I think this is karma, man. This quarterback situation, us just not being able to get right, man. We did not appreciate, like I said, the true fans like myself and BRF, we appreciated Matt Ryan. But I don't think the average
Generally you're
Atlanta
speaking.
fan, I don't think that the average Atlanta fan appreciated Matt Ryan. They were so, I believe this wholeheartedly, they were so wild by the highlight reel of Michael Vick and the prettiness and the flashiness of it that they kind of browse over Matt Ryan like he's not a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer.
You
He's a
can make
Hall of
that
Famer.
case?
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, and he played in the hardest division, arguably in the history of the league. Think about that division. You had
Quarterback division.
quarterback
Drew
division.
Brees
Drew Brees, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan. That was the hardest division in the history. Collectively, all three of them went to a Super Bowl. Two of them won the MVP. And
and
I
one of
still
them won the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP.
and one of them won a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP for a franchise who outside of the Dome Patrol really didn't have a lot to celebrate.
They were
So
the Aints.
yeah, they were the Aints. And look, people think when we say the Aints, it's a bad thing. The Saints fans themselves gave themselves the name the Aints. They used to come up there and they used to wear these little plastic bags and they used to put Aints on there, but they still used to sell out every game.
Not
Their
only
home,
that though, but Drew Brees, and again to your point, champ, because you mentioned this on my pod. Sorry to cut you off, big fella.
it's all good.
Remember, you said it yourself. They were moving that franchise to San Antonio
Yeah,
post Hurricane Katrina.
yeah. That would
And
have been devastating to them. That would have been devastating to that community because that's all they had.
yeah, that and the New Orleans Hornets, now the New Orleans Pelicans. But big fella, I think when you look at Matt Ryan now, you realize how good y'all had it in Atlanta. I think people took Matt Ryan for granted because, to your point, the Michael Vick experience and how they looked at Michael Vick outside of the football field. Before the whole thing with Michael Vick back in '07, they looked at him as the Allen Iverson of the NFL. And again, when you're in a predominant black city like Atlanta, and when you have someone as electric as Mike Vick, oh, th- their eyes are going to be glued to the TV screen. But when you look at Matt Ryan, no off the field issues, consistent. He puts up numbers each and every year. Champ, he's more of a Hall of Famer in my opinion than Eli Manning. I know people will say Eli because of the two Super Bowls, two Super Bowl MVPs. He beat Brady, he beat Manning. But if you look at Matt Ryan's body of work compared to Eli outside of those two Super Bowls, who do you look at and stands out who had the better career?
It was Matt Ryan, man. Look, I'm looking at the stats, man. That's the reason I brought my head down. I'm looking at the stats, man. Look, man.
Well,
We
I
had
thought you
not
were I thought you were looking at Magic City.
no, no, no. We'll get to that later. But uh we never had back-to-back winning seasons before he got there. First year he got there, we damn near won a division title the first year. It wasn't for Carolina. Second year he got hurt and he was out for a few games. And ironically, his rookie year when he got hurt was the only time that he missed time at the beginning of his career in Atlanta. So he missed only 3 games of his career in Atlanta, and that was in his second year when he hurt his leg
The first pass he attempted was a touchdown.
to Michael Jenkins of all people. But
Mhm.
I digress. Then man, look, during that time we had two 13-win seasons in his first 5 years. Yeah, two 13-win seasons in his first 5 years. He got there in '08. We was in the NFC Championship less than 4 years later. He was in the NFC Championship less than 4 years later, man. And we had some lean years with him, because they was trying to transition that team from Mike Smith because it had already run. Mike Smith had kind of run its course, but
He was a solid coach. I
he
mean,
was a solid coach.
he tried to do what he could on the defensive side of the football field. But then after Mike Smith, after that for a little run, you started to have Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn, we went to the Super Bowl then. Then we had another winning season after that. We look, like I said, man, we never had back-to-back winning season with any quarterback, not even Steve Barkowski.
But
And
not
the
just
thing,
but
and
not
the
just
thing,
Matt Ryan, champ. You had a lot of good, really good players though. Roddy
yeah,
White,
but
Michael Turner, the offensive line, Jake Ferguson. You also had some really good players that should get a lot more credit in Atlanta. But
Grady
I really
Jarrett,
think that, yeah, Jared, yeah, they really took it for granted because of look at the embarrassment of riches they have now. And you really look at those Atlanta teams, sorry to cut you off, but that just tells you just how good those teams were and how Atlanta fans, y'all were spoiled. And y'all should have given them more credit. Not you, champ. I'm talking about
yeah,
other Atlanta Falcons fans.
and myself as well, man, because I was a critical fan. I look, we've never look. I'm kind of we kind of like we thirsty for a championship, man. Thirsty for a championship. That's all we wanted was a championship. We've been robbed of 2 championships. Every team in the state of Georgia has won something. Now the curse has been lifted. The curse has been lifted. For the 21st century, we have been one of the most exciting centers of the universe when it comes to sports. The Braves are a winning team. Braves are a winning team, regardless of what happened this year. If you look at the MLB awards, we have an embarrassment of riches in, you know, the baseball on the baseball diamond. When you look at soccer, we won the championship not too long ago. We finally broke the football curse when we not only won the national championship but won back to back, and then won the World Series and then won and won. That was a great time to be uh, a Georgia sports fan. Won the World Series and a national championship in the same year. That was a hell of a time. We just waiting. We're thirsty for that championship, man. And like I said, man, when you think about those teams that won, they're arguably considered some of the greatest teams of all time. When you think about the 95 Braves, that is considered one of the greatest teams of all time. When you think about Tom Glavine, when you think about John Smoltz, when you think about a lot of those guys, even David Justice, when you think about a lot of Chipper Jones, you think about that as the greatest team of all time. When you think about the back-to-back Bulldogs, you think about some of the greatest talents of all time. Look how that Georgia to Philadelphia pipeline is working for Philadelphia right about now, leading them to Super Bowls. That has to be studied at a later time. You went from being Georgia Bulldogs, one of the most dominant teams in college football, to filtering all most of your defense to the Philadelphia Eagles. And now you're the most dominant defensive team, and you complete and you're on the road to a repeat in the Super Bowl. You went from repeating in college to repeating in the NFL. That has to be studied. We're just looking for that on the pro level. And ironically, another strike against the Atlanta Falcons is this: you let a lot of your players in your backyard get away. You let a lot of players from your Javon Walker is the first Georgia Bulldog that we have drafted in modern history. You're letting a lot of players get away. You've let a lot of players get away. And between all of these football players that you've let get away, nearly 300 of them have won Super Bowls with other teams, whether as a starter or as a reserve player. So, man, Atlanta has been looking for a winner, man. And when you're in a big city like Atlanta, man, your fans are hungry for that championship. We're hungry for a championship. And yeah, we got spoiled real quick. And that's what I tell Georgia fans, man. Don't get too spoiled too quick, man. Because guess what, man? There was a time where it was bad. There was times that we were happy to get to bowl games. There was time where we was 8-4. Don't get too spoiled, man. I understand we want used to being in contention for the natty, but don't get too spoiled, man. Remember the bad times so we can enjoy the good times. These are the best times that you're ever going to see in Georgia football, man, because we are there. But yeah, man, Atlanta's hungry for a championship, and that's why the fans were so tough on Matty Ice. I believe they were so thirsty for that championship, especially after the Michael Vick years. Where you know like I said, people got I never understood why people say, Matt Ryan is not the greatest quarterback in Atlanta history because he has to be. He's
The
the only one
stats, the
that won.
accolades
the
proven.
accolades, the MVPs. And the thing is, Mike Vick, if you really want me to be honest, not even the second best quarterback in Atlanta history. It's Steve Barkowski. It's Steve Barkowski.
Champ, the only
So
reason why they'll say that is because they're not used to seeing Steve Bartkowski. They're just so glued into Michael Vick. But to your point, Champ, this is a no-brainer for Matt Ryan as
yeah,
far as with the greatest Atlanta Falcons quarterback. He has longevity, the stats, the accolades. You
yeah,
look at Matt Ryan, he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. The
yeah.
knock on Michael Vick, had Michael Vick had that mentality, had the focus early on in his career. Now he didn't have that until he had, rest his soul, the late great Dan Reeves. Amongst them, he was the one that held them accountable until Andy Reid when he joined the Eagles back in 2009.
Yeah.
That's the best version that you saw Michael Vick in 2010 as a passer. But Matt Ryan, look, people just need to give Matt Ryan his flowers, especially in Atlanta, because you don't realize how good y'all got. Imagine if Matt Ryan at his prime were with this team. I
Look,
think he would have done some things with this team, make them at least playoff caliber. But at the same time, when you look at Atlanta, I look at the front office, I look at Arthur Blank, I look at a lot of things. Y'all done y'all homework as far as getting all the right types of ingredients, but it hasn't materialized on the field as far as wins. And you keep bringing in the wrong types of guys. So what are you gonna do as far as a head coach is concerned, champ? Raheem Morris is out the door. Zach Robinson's out the door. I hate to say it, but Zach Robinson is just as bad as an OC compared to what Arthur Smith was last year.
basically, you ain't lying. That's the thing. We keep hiring these same coordinators, bro. Get you a strong-minded guy in there. And basically, Raheem Morris, he was a recycle. He didn't do nothing when he was in Atlanta in the first time. Then he went to Tampa Bay. He ain't do nothing there. So it's just it's very, very disappointing, man. Like I said, if we didn't have the talent, I could have understood. It was like, well, you don't have the talent. Okay, we just don't have the talent. But when you have the talent, in the great words of Sonny from Bronx Tales, man, it's nothing like wasted talent, bro. And this is what happened with Atlanta this year, man. Just wasted talent. Bijan is upset every darn game. He's not used to losing like this. I mean, him being the back that he was at Texas and being the high caliber, he's a top five back in this league. Being misutilized. Him and Tyler Algier. Mind you, we about to lose Tyler Algier next year. Somebody finna pay him a fat contract next year. Rest assured.
Which is
So
why you're gonna have to go on the draft and you're gonna have to get another running back to complement
yeah,
Bijan.
yeah. So it's a lot, man. This is a very, very disappointing season for you to have talent and know that you had it and you just didn't do nothing with it, man. And like I stated, man, the more and more you lose the faith of fans, the more they stop showing up to the arena. And when they stop showing up to the arena, then that's trouble.
It is, man. But hopefully Atlanta will get it together